So that kicked off a months-long free Meek campaign, which culminated just this past summer with Meek's conviction being overturned and the foundation of the Reform Alliance by Michael Rubin and Meek Mill to champion criminal justice reform in the country. But before all that, there was a story about two men who became friends, and that's how this all began. So I wanted to start there. How did you guys get to know one another?
Well, I didn't really like them, by the way. So.
Sorry, I'm presumptuous to call you friends.
Yeah. No, we met at the NBA All-Star game, I guess, I think 6 years ago now. We were randomly sitting next to each other, and you know, Meek kind of in a similar way to me, always asked lots of questions. The way I always learned in business was find smart people, ask lots of questions. Meek was just asking me questions. Hey, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? And he had the same type of inquisitive personality as I did, and I think that just kind of made us gravitate to each other. I was involved as a partner in the Philadelphia 76ers. Meek was from Philly, 76ers fan himself, and started coming to games. We just started spending time together.
Meek, what drew you to Michael?
I was sitting next to Mike at a game, and I was taking a lot of pictures and stuff like that. And he was asking me who I was. I was asking him who he was. And you know, we actually had...
You literally didn't know?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know no team owners to the 76ers. And you know, I ended up running into him at some basketball games, and we ended up hanging out. And you know, we ended up hanging out over the years. And one day I just wanted him to see what court looked like for a guy like me when I go to court, because hanging around him, I kind of knew from his character, I kind of knew he wasn't familiar with the type of lifestyle I come from. I knew he probably knew about it, but you know, I asked him to come to court, and you know, that was the start of reform from that day on out.
What year was that?
That was actually 2018.
2017, it was actually 2 years ago, I think, in the next, what day is it?
It's November 7th? 6th, thank you.
So for everyone to know, 2 years ago today is when Meek got sent to prison for not committing a crime. So when I sat next to him in the courtroom.
I finally will be coming home today, just now.
Wow.
And
wow.
From 2 years, November, was it 6?
Yeah, it was today, 2 years ago, crazy.
So I want to step back to your original sentence, Meek. And again, that conviction has since been overturned. But that was 11.5 to 23 months in county jail, followed by 10 years probation. And in your amazing Amazon series, which I recommend to everybody in this room to watch, you said that at the time, this was in 2008, this seemed like a good deal, considering the charges that you were facing and the resources you had available to you to fight them. So I want to go back to that mindset. Like, what was it like when you heard that sentence, 10 years probation? Did you think like, okay, that's not bad?
Nothing about it was a big deal. To me, it felt like a big deal. Just being trapped in the system. I got found guilty for pointing a gun at a cop. I think everybody in here know what happened when you point a gun at a black kid in America, point a gun at a group of police officers. At least it'd be shots fired or somebody probably would lose their life. I got felony for a crime I didn't do. I got found guilty. And being from that type of environment, you know, you see that a lot. You get locked up, you might get charged with 40 charges. And if you don't have lawyer money, you can't afford an attorney 9 times out of 10, you take a deal. And these charges go on your record. You might get half of the charges dropped and half go on your record. So to me, at the time, to my conditions, how I was living, that was normal to me. I was like 10 years of probation, even though I didn't do the crime, I wanted to go home that bad that it sounded like a great deal to me. And as my years went on, I started to progress. I actually caught this case when I was 19 years old. I struck a record deal at the age of 22. So, you know, from them years, 19 to 22, I probably was in and out of prison, not for a new case, but, you know, getting out on bail. I got found guilty for the case. I ended up going back to prison. So in between them years, I was in and out of prison from never even being involved in crime again. And I got a record deal, and my life flourished. I started moving forward. I was working. I started making money, started employing people, doing charity. In some way, without committing crime, probation kept placing me back in jail without having to do with anything of breaking the law or committing a crime. And, you know,
I want to, like, for everybody here to sort of really understand what that was like. I mean, your career's taking off, you're flourishing. You were responsible for other people's livelihoods, and yet you still needed permission or to move out of state, right?
If I could just put it in my way, it's just basically like you're trying to move forward in life and you have something pulling you back. Me, I always looked at it as if I'm someone with resources, I make good money, I have good friends who know a lot of people, I have a foundation. For the average person who does have a job and you get a technical violation, and a technical violation is not committing crime, and you get sent to prison for 90 days, and to the system, 90 days is lenient, but 90 days you lose your house, you lose your job, you can lose everything in 90 days, and you know, that's a setback that people cannot recover from. Me, I was able to recover from it because of my drive and God's will. I made it through that, but you know, I've seen a lot of people fall victim to not being able to recover from a system that was built to actually help you re-enter society.
So when did you stop sort of seeing it just as you on probation and really see this larger system at work? When did you, stop seeing this as such a good deal and see this as a really systemic inequality?
To be serious, like to me, that was normal in my neighborhood. Everybody go to jail for like technical violations. Really, Mike and like Robert Kraft and like people who come from different worlds, like you went to jail, you did 6 months for popping a willy in prison. You know, it wasn't normal in that world. To my world, that was normal. And as I traveled the world and traveled and been places, I kind of see that those things were only like aimed towards certain environments, and they only worked and was effective in certain environments, and sent people to prison who looked like myself. And I happened to be famous and just one of the victims. And when I got out of prison this time, when I seen people stand for me, march for me, people tweet free Meek Mill and hashtag Meek Mill, I decided to use my platform for a better cause, for the people who actually stood up for me. I'm going on 2 years since I've been out of prison, doing panels like these, actually doing a lot of work with Rubin, me and the reform team, and trying to build.
So Michael, I want to talk to you because you were coming from a very different background, obviously. What was your awakening? Was it the courtroom 2 years ago? When did you're friends with me, when did you realize that this was happening in the background?
I'll give you a couple along the way. I think one of the first basketball games that Meek ever came to, the Sixers, the team was going through a rebuilding process. I think we were 10-72 that year, and I think we were having more fun at halftime than what was actually happening on the court. It was a tough process to go through. And I remember it was probably 2014 or something. We were at this game, and I said to Meek after it, I said, "Hey, I'm going to the Brigada. It's a casino in Atlantic City. Do you want to come?" He says, "I'm not allowed." And I literally looked at him. I said, "Do you need permission from your mom?" And he looked at me, he's like, "What do you mean?" He said, "I'm not allowed to go." Like, I didn't understand. He's like, "I'm on probation." I'm like, "Okay, so you can't go across the bridge to go to the casino?" He says, "No, I'll go to jail." And I was like, that was the first time he told me. I was like,
he mind blown and I'm mind blown. Like my rich white friend don't even think this possible. And it was just mind blowing to both of us. Like, you can't go. Literally, the bridge is like
5 minutes away.
Yeah, you can walk from here 3 blocks. He's like, if you cross that bridge, you go to prison. I'm like, yes. I'll probably get 3-4 years in prison. And it baffled me how surprised he was. And as I just met more people who cared about the situation, it was like, it's not normal, me. And we started building. We came up with a plan. I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want to cry a victim. Of course, I come from an environment where it's a tough environment. It's a ruthless environment. I think you people know the inner cities of America where poverty is like a big deal. And I never been an angel in coming out of there, meeting Michael Rubin and just people along the way. I figured out this wasn't normal. And
what was normal for you, it didn't seem normal to me. So that was the first thing I saw, was that. I remember saying, "So wait a second," because I said, "Doesn't your son live in New Jersey?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "So how do you go see him?" He said, "I have to get permission." I'm like, "Wait a second, if you want to go pick your son up from school, you have to get permission." He's like, "Yeah, I'll go to jail if not." And he's telling me like it's normal. I'm looking at me like he's got 7 heads. Literally, it made absolute sense to me. So that was probably the first time. The second time was, this is going back again, 5-6 years ago. Now, Meek was around all the time. Before the summer, before he was convicted in 2000, and before he was sent to prison for not committing a crime, he was around all the time. And I kind of like, I'm like a banter or make fun of people. I'm like, "Yo, dude, like, why are you always here?" He's like, I'm like, do you need a job with the Sixers? Do you want to work at Fanatics? He's like, "Michael, I'm not allowed to travel. What do you not understand?" He's frustrated because he can't make money. And I'm like, I don't understand why it's just not making any sense to me. So the next thing happened when I watched him I watched a probation officer get up and say he's a model probationer, he's done everything we've asked, we recommend no sentence. I watched a district attorney get up and say we recommend no sentence. And there's a judge who says because he popped a wheelie and broke up a fight in an airport, even though there were no charges in either case. I watched her sent to prison for 2 to 4 years. That was like the major wake-up call for me. I'm like, now this guy become a really good friend of mine. I'm like, it was like, I'd never seen something so wrong in my entire life. And it was firsthand. It wasn't like Meek telling me about his cousin or his friend. This happened to my boy. And so that was the second thing that really like shocked me. And that was, for me, that was really the life-changing event where, I think myself and Jay-Z said, look, we're going to do whatever it takes to get you out of prison. And then the third kind of, and probably the last thing that really shocked me was, we were very focused on this judge, and we hired a bunch of investigators. They were looking at all our previous cases. We found tons of improprieties, tons of issues, and I remember I went to see Meek. I probably saw Meek when he was in prison. I don't know, probably 20 times. And one time he said to me, Michael, like I know you're so obsessed with like this judge because you saw it firsthand. He said I never did the original crime. He said to me, you've got to like get the original gun. You're gonna see like, yeah, I had a gun, like every kid in Philly has a gun, but I was just kind of, I was just getting rid of it. And so our investigative team, Luke, who's sitting right in the front seat here, I left the prison that Saturday. I called Luke. I said, Luke, you got to look at the original. You got to look at the original arrest. Meek, he's telling me he didn't point the gun. And by the way, it makes sense because if he pointed the gun, he probably wouldn't be here. Like Meek always said to me, it's called suicide. If a black kid points a gun at multiple
I just always break it
suicide.
down as like I'm an artist. I've been in business. Rap careers last 5 years. I've been around like 8, 9 years. I come from suicidal decisions. I never wanted to kill myself. I know if you point a gun at a police officer, it's probably like a 99.9% chance.
Because they've been doing their job.
Yeah, you're supposed to do your job. And I always used to say to Mike probably every 6 months, so we'd just be chilling. I'm like, you think I'm pointing a gun at a cop? It's just out of character. I wanted them to know me as a person. And he always would be like, nah, I didn't think you did it. But he used to breeze over it, and I didn't think he really understood what I was saying.
Because I didn't really think about it. But so once so then our investigators went out, and the first police officer we interviewed said, oh no, he didn't point the gun, the whole thing's a lie. And now with the Super Bowl in 2018, Eagles playing the Patriots, and literally I remember calling Meek, I said, I got great news. You're getting out of prison right away. One of the cops came forward and signed an affidavit and said you didn't point the gun. And there were only 2 arresting officers. This was one of the 2 arresting officers. And Meek's like, that's amazing. It took another 3 months for him to get out of prison.
I even told him that too. I was like, it's amazing. He thought I was coming home like tomorrow. I'm like, no, it's the system.
I'm like, I'm coming home from the Super Bowl to pick you up. You're coming home. And he's like, okay. And so
in February, I seen him in April.
April 24th. So for me, watching that, even though he didn't do the original crime, and then he went to prison 4 different times over the next 10 years for never committing a crime, but he was still in prison. That's when we said this issue is so much bigger than him, and that's when we said we need to take on the issue. In our conversations, we would talk every day from prison. The conversations went from, how we getting him out of prison to once we get him out of prison, how are we fixing the overall issue. I think that's where the entrepreneurial business instincts kick in and say, we got to fix this problem.